Hi everyone, I'm Julian. I'm Argentinian. I'm an economist. That's why there's one decimal point over there, which doesn't exist anymore because we have like 80–90% inflation per year. And I think that's why I'm interested in stablecoins, because we don't have them. I'm currently working in mStable as data scientist. And as part of that, I created a risk framework to assess the dependent risk of them. And today I'm going to be talking a little bit about that and also stablecoins in general. So the agenda, first, I'm going to start explaining what are stablecoins and why are they important. Then I'm going to talk why they're stable or unstable. Then it's going to come to the juiciest part, which is the risk framework, what makes them more risky. And then I would like to have a discussion about it, maybe about the future. So, yeah. If you have any question at any time, just raise your hand. You can ask. You can ask in Spanish as well. Yeah, let's start. What are stablecoins? So stablecoins are the currencies that are supposed to be always worth the same. So yeah, you can see like this is USDT standard. It's the biggest stablecoin, and normally around 1 go to 0.998, but it's pretty stable. Then you have Ethereum and Bitcoin, which are extremely volatile. And what?
I'm so sorry, we can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
Yeah. So sorry to interrupt you.
Okay, let me see. Let me see if I take this off. Is it better now?
That's better.
Okay, I prefer to speak without a microphone. If it's still too low, let me know and I can speak louder or grab the microphone again. So, how important are stablecoins? I think they're pretty important. If you look at the current top 10 of stablecoins by market cap, you have three different stablecoins. Number 3 and number 4 are stablecoins. And if you actually look by volume, USDT is the highest one. It has $28 billion of daily volume, which is much more than the rest. And why do we need them? So if you're paid in crypto, you don't want your income to devalue like 70% in 6 months. If you have a project that you funded through crypto, you need to ensure your runway. You cannot get like suddenly half of your money that you got. If you got Bitcoin at 2,000, you want to sell, right? You have to store your value somehow. If you're a trader, you start a trade, you need to exit to somewhere. You cannot keep your profits there, because then you're going to lose it. So there's a lot of use cases for that. And there are a lot of stablecoins. According to CoinGecko, there's like 50, more than 50. But we don't need that many stablecoins. Why do we have so many? And I think that we have so many because creating a stablecoin, it's a great business model. It's basically you're creating a bank, and what's the value proposition of banks? How do they make money? They borrow money from their customers, and they lend it. And they make a difference between the interest rate that they lend and which they borrow to. But stablecoins create money. So you're basically creating a bank with no cost of capital. Or even USDC, for example, you're giving them free money. They are printing USDC, 1 USDC for each dollar for free. And then they buy US Treasury and they get a 3–4% yield for free. So it's a great business model. We definitely don't need so many, but I expect that we're going to keep seeing a lot of different stablecoins, because why not if it's a money printer? So we definitely need a way to identify which stablecoins are good, which stablecoins we should trust, and which ones are pretty much a money maker for the issuer, or maybe even a scam. So now let's talk about why are stablecoins stable. How do they keep to $1. Let's start with the definition of money. What's money, right? Money is a medium of exchange, so basically you need to be able to buy something, a good or a service, with this asset. It's a unit of account, so it actually serves you to understand how much how much time, pretty much, you have to give to get a service or good, and store value. You actually you should know that what you have now, it's going to be worth the same tomorrow. And if you don't want to buy that thing today, but you want to buy it tomorrow, you should be able with that. So stablecoins pretty much are money because you can use them to trade for things, you can use it to measure the value of things, and you can actually store your value there. But how do they make sure of that thing? How do you make sure that the value that it's worth today is going to stay the same tomorrow? And in the end, money is about trust. People have to trust that it's going to be worth the same. So there's a lot of different stablecoins, as we saw. Each one of them have different ways to ensure that the store value is going to be the same. So in the end, all of these mechanisms are to create this trust. What are these mechanisms? There are pretty much two great types. You have fiat-backed stablecoins, which are simpler. You have USDC, USDT, USD, JP Morgan coin, which you give them $1, and they give you one USDC, one USDT, or whatever. What's the problem with them? You have to trust the issuer. You have to trust Circle, you have to trust Tether, you have to trust Binance, that they actually are holding as many dollars as they claim. And we know that that's not always true. That happened with Celsius, happened with 3AC, happened with Nesk, with Huawei recently. They didn't have what they were claiming to have, and we didn't have any ways to verify that. And not only that, the issuer retains a lot of control. They retain particularly a capability of blacklisting users. So pretty much, if you are holding USDC, at any point in time, Circle can blacklist you, and then you are no longer able to access your money. And that's pretty much what we want to destroy with crypto, right? We are building this because we want to create a permissionless, censorship-resistant financial system. So then, as our friend Doc once said, a decentralized economy needs decentralized money. But how do we achieve that? There are pretty much three great models to achieving that. I'm going to explain this in more detail now. The first one are collateralized debt positions. And these ones are like DAI, USDT, MIM, Alchemix. You have one-to-back stablecoins back and algorithmic stablecoins. Let's jump first to the collateralized debt position stablecoins. And let's see DAI, which is the biggest one, the first one, and the one that has shown greatest success. How does it work? So then we have Alice. Alice wants to leverage. She wants to take a loan, and for that she deposits a collateral of $2,000 worth of Ethereum. What does it mean? It means that she's going to take a loan, and in order to get this loan, she's going to put a warranty. And if she doesn't repay it, she's going to lose it. So she will put $2,000 worth of ETH as collateral, and she will mint 1,000 DAI, which is each one of them worth $1. So she's going to now have a debt of 1,000 DAI. So what happens? Suppose that Ethereum drops 30%. Right? So now her collateral is only worth $1,400. That means that her loan is now below the collateralization limit that she was allowed to get. So Bob comes here and she pays her debt, which was 1,000 DAI. What happens? When Bob pays her debt, he takes $1,000 worth of collateral plus a penalty fee that Alice has to pay because she wasn't careful enough in her loan. And then Alice is allowed to withdraw the rest of her collateral, which is only $348 worth of fee. So she not only paid the penalty fee, but she was also forced to sell ETH at a very cheap price, at a cheaper price than she was willing to sell when she created the deposit. So she has a lot of incentives to take care of her debt, and when the ETH price is going down, she has incentives to go to the market and buy DAI again to pay her debt. So that's pretty much the way that DAI works, to try to get to be worth only always $1. When DAI is worth less than 1, loan takers are incentivized to go to the market and buy back DAI that they previously sold in order to repay their debt. And if it's trading above 1, they are incentivized to mint more DAI because they can go to the market and sell for profit. But this is not enough. DAI was trading above 1 for a really long time, and this is a problem that other stablecoins like this one have, like, for example, Liquidity, which is LUSD, which is another stablecoin, and is normally trading at $1.04. So they had to come up with a new mechanism that is called a peg stability model, which they basically, whenever DAI is trading above 1, they mint DAI, they create DAI out of thin air, and they sell it in the market for 1 USDC. So what happens? There is a lot of arbitrageurs that say, hey, I can grab my USDC, buy DAI from maker at $1, and then go to the market and sell for 104 USDC. So it's 4 cents of USDC, pretty much for free, with no risk, because it's trading a stablecoin for another stablecoin. So then what you have is that when DAI is trading above 1, there's a lot of arbitrageurs that go and arbitrage the price down. And the same happens when DAI is trading below 1. They are still buying DAI at $1. So if DAI is trading, for example, 98 cents, people will grab their USDC, sell for DAI, and then buy back the USDC from the market and get 2 cents of profit. This was really successful for DAI, so successful that Maker got $4 billion of USDC. And when originally DAI was a decentralized stablecoin that was pretty much backed by Ethereum, now it's 50% backed by USDC. And what does this mean? It means that pretty much Circle has the power to shut down DAI. Because if Circle were to blacklist the MakerDAO contracts, then MakerDAO would be holding 3-4 billion USDC that they cannot move because they are blacklisted. So then there will be like 8 billion DAI circulating, with only half of them being backed. And this would be the destruction of it, because people will try to sell DAI as soon as possible to get something back. So this is one of the big risks, that probably the biggest, maybe only risk that DAI is facing today. Then we have other sorts of stablecoins, which are backed one-to-one by other stablecoins. For example, MUSD, that is the stablecoin created by mStable. MUSD is backed 100% by USDT, USDC, DAI, and SUSD. It's pretty simple. You deposit one of these and then you can mint one USD. It has the same risk as Maker because if Circle blacklist die, they will probably blacklist MUSD too. And they have some utility, but not much because there's not a lot of point in doing this. You can swap between the base assets. You can hedge against the risk of one of these derivative pegging. The protocol earns a yield on the base assets and then distribute to holders.
How do you earn yield?
In our case, we deposit the base assets in Aave and Compound. We distribute that to MUSD holders. Origin USD is one that is very similar, and they do something similar. I think they deposit something in Convex as well. And it's interesting because it's a way of earning a passive income without having to do much. Your balance is increasing. That's in the case of Origin. In MUSD, you have to do some stuff, but it's also pretty easy. And then you have algorithmic stablecoins, which are much harder to understand. Frax is probably the success story of algorithmic stablecoins, and they expand their supply they expand their supply and reduces algorithmically. Basically, whenever it started by increasing the supply when Frax was higher than 1, and decreasing when it was smaller than 1. But it's got much more complex than this. They created a mechanism that is called algorithmic market operations. And so far, it has yielded great results. Then you have USD, which, in my opinion, was not an algorithmic stablecoin. I think that USD was pretty much a non-backed stablecoin that was marketed as algorithmic. You pretty much gave them, they printed Luna, which was the native currency of the Raffle. You gave it to them, you burn it, and then they gave you the same amount of USD. But then that happened in the opposite way. Whenever you wanted to redeem USD, they were minting Luna. So the fact that they were burning or minting, it was just like kind of an accounting trick to make people believe that the supply was reducing, but in the end, it was all bullshit, and it was a scam. Now let's go to the stablecoin risk framework. What makes a stablecoin more risky? So first of all, disclaimer. Yes, question over there.
Can you explain why you made the framework?
Yes, I can explain it.
Just in one sentence?
Yes. I'm currently, as I told you, working in mStable. We are creating a new product that is called mStable, which users will be able to deposit one stablecoin, USDC, USDT, or DAI, and get exposure to a variety of strategies of all different stablecoins. We aim to get the maximum yield as possible, but at the same time we want to do it in a very safe way. So we created a framework that is supposed to tell us, okay, this stablecoin is safe enough for this mStable, so then we can optimize the yield of the different strategies, for the different strategies. But first of all, a disclaimer, and it's that if you don't know what you're doing, keep your funds in very safe stablecoins, like USDC, USDT, DAI, or derivatives of this. If you see a 20% interest rate, run away. It's probably a scam. Crypto is full of scams, and take care of yourself because no one will take care of yourself. So this is what I was about to explain, which is why do we want a stablecoin risk framework? Why did we create it? And this is what the mStable pretty much looks like. Alice makes a deposit in a mStable. And then the metabolite makes 4 deposits, or 5, or whatever, in different convex stablecoins. So, as I told you, we want to maximize the yield, but we don't want to invest in something that is going to go to 0. We don't even want to invest in something that's going to go to 99 cents, because if we invest in something that goes to 99 cents, and then a user wants to withdraw, even if we believe that it's going to go back to 1 eventually, if a user withdraws when the stablecoin is 99 cents, then the user is going to realize that loss, and our product is yield. So we have to do it in a very careful and safe way, and only invest in stablecoins that we believe not that they are going to be 1 in the long term, but they are always going to be 1. So a little more of context and methodology before jumping into the actual framework. We're only focusing in crypto-backed stablecoins, because fiat-backed stablecoins, the risk, they're coming from the issuer risk, and we have no way to assess it. We can only trust what they say, or not trust. We are not auditors. We cannot really know how to assess it. So the framework doesn't scope for it. The second point is that we are treating USDC, USDT, and DAI as risk-free. And they are not really risk-free. There are some risks associated with them, but we cannot really hedge it. And also, every stablecoin DeFi at the moment pretty much inherits all the risks that are coming from it. So in the end, a score of 100% in the framework should be read as the stablecoin is as risky as USDC, USDT, and DAI. And finally, this framework, the way that we did it was by researching the different designs of the stablecoins and trying to understand what could make them fail. To understand their potential pitfalls, understand what's the likelihood of it happening, and what's the status of this. So, considering this, we came with 5 criteria. Each one of them has a different point, and then the average of all of those is what gives the score. The criteria I will explain in more detail now. Are pretty much bad debt, hard assets backing the stablecoin, to have an effective peg stability module, a linear effect, and the liquidity in the code. I will explain first the bad debt. So what does bad debt mean? Remember that collateralized debt position stablecoins issue their stablecoins by giving loans, and these loans are collateralized by volatile assets. So volatile assets, because they're volatile, suffer from massive price action, and sometimes the price falls really quick, and sometimes the liquidations of the collateral is not fast enough to cover the debt of the people that took the loans. So when this happens, there is a portion of the circulating supply of the stablecoin that becomes unbacked. And this is what happened, for example, with meme. Meme was collateralized by UST, and when UST dropped to 0, there was a portion that they were not able to liquidate very fast. So now there is around 12 million meme that have no backing at all. For though it happened something different, they actually were using secure volatile assets as backing, but they suffered a hack. And now they suffer like 30% of bad debt, which means that 30% of dollar is uncollateralized. So a little bit of under collateralization is okay. It's not that because there is 1% of bad debt, the stablecoin will be worth 0. And the reason of this pretty much is what I told in the first place, that all of these peg mechanisms are built to generate trust. It's not that there is something inherent on the design that makes it go to 1. It's a fact that we all agree that it's worth 1, that makes it worth 1. So if there's a little bit of bad debt, maybe people don't care, which is actually what's happening with NIM, for example. It's okay. But the more the bad debt, the more risky it is. So this is what you can see in the line over there. When the bad debt reaches 10% of the circulating supply, we assign 0 points.
How do you weight that against like that
Against circulating supply.
I know, but how do you weight the risk of that against just centralization? Like just USDC, they're back.
We have no way to measure centralization risk, so this framework decides to trust it. Because there's no data point that we can take that will tell us, no, we cannot trust them, or we can trust them. Then we have redeemable assets, like MUSD is a redeemable asset, OUSD is a redeemable asset. Frax also has redeemable assets, which means that there's hard assets backing them. You can give them Frax, and they will give you back their backing. It's like their reserves, right? So we also came up with a rule that the higher the share of the hard assets that these stablecoins have in the reserves, it's more safer, right? And for this, we actually came up with a curve that the closer it is to 1, to 100%, the more points we assign. We believe that a little bit of deviation is okay here, but the larger the deviation, the higher the penalty. Because it's all about trust, again, and bank runs happen very fast. If people start to talk about and say, hey, this stablecoin is unbacked, then people start to redeem their assets to get back as much as they can. And then if they start doing that, actually the share of assets that the stablecoin has go down because they have to give them away on a one-to-one basis.
Sorry, I have a question.
Yeah.
In the previous slide, actually you mentioned that you on purpose exclude all the fiat-backed stablecoin, right?
Yeah.
And I hear you mentioned that you do have hard assets backing for
Yes.
some stablecoins, but those hard assets, if they are, sorry, yeah, I'm trying to read the non-volatile assets. So are you talking about other stablecoins backing stablecoins?
Yes.
But then aren't you actually compounding the risk?
Yes, exactly. So this framework basically assumes that centralized stablecoins, or at least USDC and USDT, are safe. It's one of the basic assumptions of the model, because otherwise, if we did not do that, it could be extremely hard, probably impossible to measure, because a lot of other stablecoins are backed. So that's why we say that all the stablecoins are actually inheriting the risks of USDC, USDT, and LIBOR.
Yeah, but then you're effectively saying that the centralized stablecoins are better than fiat that are backing the stablecoins.
No, I'm saying that they're the same. So it's two different things, right? The framework treats centralized stablecoins as risk-free. So if a crypto-backed stablecoin is backed by centralized stablecoin, this framework will tell you that 100% safe, which in the end means that it's inheriting the risk of decentralized stablecoins.
Yeah, then it has to be selective.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a bit circular for sure, but just because it's circular, we brought that circle by saying we trust this. We trust USDC, USDT, and Lite, because otherwise it's impossible.
Yeah, it has to be only circle or tether, but not other.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Yeah, exactly.
No price. So,
Sorry. No, go ahead.
no price.
Well, I mean, if a stablecoin is backed by Frax, then this either stablecoin is inheriting the risk of Frax, which we know that it's not 100%, as we see later. So, yeah, in the end, if a stablecoin is backed by Frax, then it should be, I mean, I haven't seen any yet, but it should be inheriting the risk. So, for example, it's not the case, but if Frax score was 50% and a stablecoin was 100% backed by Frax, then the risk here should be 50, right? Because it's the same as Frax.
Juli, sorry. Do you consider that regulation could be an important thing to consider in terms of how you should include, or how are you going to include this regulation part in terms of what governments are seeking with these stablecoins in this framework, or are you trying to study these trends of regulation in terms of what are doing what the most important economies are doing about that? For example, USA, or now with the European Union.
Yeah, so I'm definitely looking very closely at the regulation and what's going to happen. This is more like a financial framework, and it's pretty hard to add regulation here. But for sure, it's one of the things that we consider. I also think that it's pretty much going to affect in the same way probably most of the stablecoins, at least the relevant ones. If there's a small stablecoin, it's going to be affected by regulation because regulators will not care. But once it achieves a certain level of size, then yeah, the regulation it's probably going to be a big thing. But we don't know how the regulation is going to be like, when it's going to come up, what's going to happen with existing stablecoins, if there's going to be like some transition period. So pretty much until there is something concrete, there is not much that we can do. But yeah, again, I'm definitely keeping an eye on it, and it's probably one of the things that we can discuss when this finishes, because I think it's super interesting. Okay, so an effective backstability model. So you see like how DAI has this mechanism that when it's above 1, it prints DAI and they sell on the market, or when it's below 1, they buy in the market. This is actually one of the things, or one of the most effective things to make a stablecoin be worthwhile. Just the fact that it exists makes it that people hold it and are not really interested in selling it, so it keeps its value. So if they do not have it, probably in the long term it's going to be worth one anyway if the design is strong. But there could be market forces that in the short or mid term makes it to go away from it. And some of them actually have a floor price, so they sell their backing assets when the stablecoin is below 1, but they do not have a roof, or the roof is not 1. Liquidity, for example, has a floor price, but the roof price is $1.10. So it's normally worth $1.04, which is not good for us to invest, because if after a while, which is likely, the stablecoin actually goes back to 1, then we lose 4% of our investment. And we don't want that to happen. So it's good if you are actually taking a loan against it, because if the price goes down in price, you're actually making a profit. You're basically shorting. But if you have to buy it on the market, which is what we will do, we will very likely end up losing some. And there's also some stablecoins that have a centralized stability model. For example, PUSD or Alchemix USD, they have a flexibility module, but there's a team behind that decides when to deploy funds. It's not automatic, like a maker, that anyone can go and everything happens just by a smart contract call. And this is not good for us, because this means that if the stablecoin is trading below 1, if the team doesn't care, and there's a user that withdraws, then we're gonna lose that difference. So it's better than nothing, but it's not as good as if it was completely centralized. So then we will only have a conflict. Then we have link effect. Link effect is what people call it's an expression of how battle tested a given plug is. Right? It basically explains that if something existed for 2 years, then it's likely going to exist for 2 more years. If it existed for 3, it's going to likely exist for 3 more years. Right? We actually care about this because while a stablecoin could be economically secure, there are still some smart contract risks. It's very hard to assess smart contract risk. So we believe that if they were alive for a longer periods of time, that means that its code was exposed to hackers for longer periods of time, so it's more secure. And not only that, but we also care if they suffer the hack or incur bad debt, we basically take away all of their points, because it kind of restarts, right? Because the whole premise of the stablecoin was that if it incurred bad debt, it was fully backed by over-collateralization, but now we check, it's not fully backed by over-collateralization anymore. So it's a different value proposition, so we basically restart their clock. If the stablecoin actually suffered the bank run, it's still alive, and it survived very well, and it didn't defect, we also give them some extra points. Something that happened to many stablecoins when USD crashed was that they defected, maybe for a week, and then they were back to 1. But those that didn't defect, like Frax, for example, Frax lost 50% of their circulating supply in 3 days, and it didn't defect at any moment. And I think that's a massive test for them that they passed. So we assigned them points, half a point. And finally, the liquidity in the curve. Curve is the main decentralized exchange for stablecoins. Everyone is constantly looking, the traders at least, at what's the liquidity, how balanced is the pool. And the liquidity curve acts as a backstop, preventing runs. And at the same time, it acts as a signal of the perceived risk by the market. So we're also considering how imbalanced the pool is. The closer it is to the optimal, it's going to have more points. If it's more than, say, 25% imbalance or 50% imbalance, we're giving them 0 points. And we're also taking them off some points when it's imbalanced to the upward side, because that's when the stablecoin started paying upwards. And when it's already high enough, we're actually sticking to exit the position, because that means that we can get the profit of selling a stablecoin when it's actually at the higher than one price. So, what are the results? SUSD, MUSD, OUSD, and Frax are of the existing stablecoins, decentralized or on-chain backed stablecoin paired against Future B, the safest one. Then you have a middle layer of Ultimate USD, PUSD, and non-USD that are a little less safe. And then you have Dollar and MIM that, because they incur in bad debt, they are extremely risky. So that's it. Any questions? Nick.
Can we give a round of applause first?
Question, which is the frequency of when we're going to revisit this. So we're going to update the results once per month. But if you look at this last point, we're going to have a watcher that is going to be actively monitoring the liquidity in the purple. If we see that the liquidity, the share of the 3CRV liquidity of a pool gets to 25%, we're going to pull out our position. And considering the sizes that we expect to have, we should never have more than 1% slippage if we exit the position at that point, which means that we should never sell for less than 99 cents, which in our opinion is a safe measure. And that's going to be watching the chain. I don't know if it's every block or every cycle, which is of 32 blocks, but it's going to be actively monitored.
All this is on Ethereum then?
Yes.
All the stablecoins in question are.
These are all still coins in Ethereum because our metabolt, at least the first one, is only going to be on Ethereum. Over there?
So I think an important aspect also is how much decentralized is the token, the coin. Yeah?
Sorry?
How much decentralized it is. So, for instance, it's like it's backed by dollars in a bank in America. Yeah. So it depends on the government choose to get the funds and choose the stable coin to disappear. Yeah. So, for instance, all the algorithmic well like DAI and so on. So we don't expect the same problems. So I think in terms of how much decentralized is the coin, for me is one of the most important things, at least for me. But okay, for a lot of people now, yeah. Yes, it's also important.
Yeah, it's definitely important, but then like, which stablecoin is really decentralized? Because DAI is also relying on USDC. Liquidity, you could say, okay, liquidity is decentralized, but then they're also relying on Chainlink, Oracle, which is centralized. Those are multi-sig that comes down Chainlink. If the US government says, okay, you should not be allowed to provide services to them, then they're also relying on that. Frax relies on USDC. Pretty much everyone is still relying on them. So I think what you're saying that definitely we should take care of decentralization. I agree. I think that we still haven't seen a stablecoin that has solved what is called the trilemma, which is a stablecoin that is actually stable, that is decentralized, and that can scale, can grow big, and it's not something very small.
I think you it's very important what you said. So it's a better decentralization. Also privacy is important. For instance, like the tornado cash thing, that is kind of blacklist that is there. So a lot of people is trying to do protocols like take the money or a mere traffic that is trying to do like a new kind of that thing. So I think maybe it's important in terms of the risk, that the risk you assume, that all your money is seen by others. It's anonymized at some point. But okay, you have a risk that people can get into your house.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, I think privacy is probably another discussion. I think like with the development of zero-knowledge rollups and technology, we're probably going to see more about that. But I'm not an expert on that, so probably some other people around that reply this. Yeah.
Can you talk about
Rye?
Yeah.
Yes.
What do you think about it?
So Rye is a stablecoin that is not pegged to any fiat currency. It's working similar as liquidity or DAI, but instead of having a stability module, when the price is above 1, so 1, but it should be like 1, they start reducing the price at which you can get liquidated. Right? So they call that redemption price. That's actually the most decentralized stablecoin, in my opinion. But again, it's super small, and I don't know if it will be successful. I mean, hopefully it will.
And it's backed by just Ethereum, right?
Yes, it's only by Ethereum.
So how are they going to avoid like what happened with DAI?
Well, they
They
have,
probably have to split. It's like 50% USDC.
no, because it's so Maker had to add USDC as backing because it was always trading above 1. So the way that they found to actually bring it back to 1 is by buying USDC on the market and minting that. But Rye doesn't try to be worth 1. So if its price is higher than 1, they don't care. And they actually drop down the redemption price, which is the price at which you get liquidated. So you should have, it's a bit complex. I should probably have like there's a slide to explain this, but yeah, they don't care basically if it's higher than 1.
And that's like kind of what DAI's not doing now, right? With their roadmap.
Well, I mean, we have people from Maker here. That's probably going to reply better than me. There's some discussions. Some people will believe so, and some others believe that they don't. But he's a Maker expert, so.
Quick answer is within 2 years into the future. So it's really a response to saying if you want to be truly decentralized, you cannot rely on assets, on USD-based assets, meaning you're forced to be tagged like this. But again, it's a 3-year discussion, so we have time.
Yeah. I don't know how it's going to be. No. There's this Go, which is the other stablecoin. Go. GHO. Go. Yeah, from Apple. But again, like these are stablecoins that are not on the market yet. It's like their project. I guess that when they come out, we're gonna analyze them. I'm looking forward to see how CRV is gonna work. But again, no clue.
So we're gonna do this with the real microphone that's not plugged in and the fake microphone. Whoever holds one of those should hold it just so that we don't fight. Obviously, it's just an exercise, I suppose. So. We're not going to follow the rule to the T. Yeah, I guess we just talked about stablecoin. I'd like to ask the question is like, if tomorrow you have to put like all your wealth in one stablecoin, which one would you pick and why?
I think the general idea that Julian tried to I guess the idea that you tried to put through is that there is this right now, and that currently we don't have a way to have solid honesty. And the thing is that if you go down to all these layers of like decentralization, you're always going to end up in some sort of centralized asset. Like USDC is backed by paper, commercial paper. Now it's a little bit less, but still, still by treasury. So like there is no stable coin where you put your whole money because there's always going to be risks, right? So the thing is, you want to choose where you want to put your risk, and these different protocols offer different places where you can spread your risk. And so, personally, what I do is, for my part of my current strategy for my portfolio is just I'm just accumulating for now. And so you don't want to accumulate in, well, or maybe you do want to, I don't know why, but you do want to diversify, even though you're just accumulating stables. So you diversify, maybe you put it into like a stable vault, like the meta vault that you guys are creating, or in projects like the Mami, for example. But putting it all into one stablecoin, you're just aggregating, you're just focusing the risk. So all these stable coins, they're not perfect, and nothing is perfect. You know what I mean? So it's like you just have to choose where you want to put your risk. There's no yes and no to these.
I used to have a lot in Binance US dollars, but not anymore. But I still have some. You didn't mention much Binance US dollars, even if it's the third stable coin in market cap. Why is that, and what do you think about it?
I didn't mention it because our mStable will be using the CRV corpus, which are stable coins that are paired against DAI, USDT, and USDC. We also don't have the tools to measure BUSD risk, but we are probably going to use BUSD as one of the stable coins that we pair against CRV, because we trust finance, but in the end it's arbitrary, right? Arbitrary. There's probably going to be a governance proposal, which we're going to propose to use these 3 pools, 4 pools, or whatever, and it's going to be after that something more arbitrary. Trust is in the end arbitrary.
I was wondering, I heard some podcasts about alternative collaterals or stablecoins, which were like, I think one was like memory, digital memory, value of that, and then the value, the price of that stablecoin, I think was like $200 or something like that. That was fixed at that. And the other ones that I loved was white paper. It was not actually really feasible. That was like energy that you need to generate stablecoin and then redeem it when you retrieve some data. But the second part is not feasible yet. Do you know some other examples? What do you think of them?
So, if I understand correctly, you're asking about stablecoins that are not pegged to the dollar, but other assets, commodities. I saw one that is pegged to the soybeans. It's actually very interesting. There was an Argentinian project doing it. It's also a centralized entity doing it. But it's very interesting because there's a lot of soybean producers in Argentina. and this will allow them to actually start trading futures or other kinds of financial instruments for their production. I haven't heard of those, but definitely in the end, you can call them stablecoins or whatever. They're derivatives of real world assets. And I think that if you think about what's the point of crypto, in the end we're gonna have to like tokenize real world assets. It's something that would actually bring a lot of value to it. Especially in countries like Argentina, where access to financial products is very restricted. And at the same time, these kind of countries are normally the ones that don't have the tools to start censoring the blockchain. So, of course, there are exceptions. I imagine in China there's also not much access to financial. Maybe there is, I don't know. And I know that cryptocurrencies in China is something it's hard to access. But speaking from what I do know, is Argentina. These kind of companies that do this kind of stuff are actually enabling a lot of opportunities.
Question to everyone. So who here at some time has owned a stablecoin in their wallet? Okay? So we got it. Okay, out of the 3 stablecoins in the list, which one do you think will still exist in 10 years' time? DAI. Okay, hands down. USDC. Okay, and Tether. Interesting. That's all. Why not? Fuck Tether.
I'll just small concept now what the price of USD is. That if you can use an order.
The price of what?
Of USD.
In relation to what? Like the price of USD is always when USD.
Depends on the currency. And you have multiple currencies. How do you know that if the average, for example, is 0.99 and USD is $1.01? How do you know the price of the different stablecoins and what the price of USD is?
But there are oracles, are our smart contracts. I don't think they are using any oracle. I'm not entirely sure the way it works. But if you actually need to know the on-chain price of any asset, it's normally using an oracle, which is what they do.
So, do you use an oracle?
No. But in the end, we don't care about the price. We just care about how many liquidity pool tokens we get from each one of, for each USDC, for example. That's using the balances of the different firm pools.
Which is technically an oracle.
Which is-
Again, I know the oracles, how they work is they look at the pools of liquidity and look at what their current price is. So you're kind of doing it directly.
Yeah, because the oracle is just a way of checking if like real world assets or any sort of number is transferred on chain basically. So in the end, as you asked, like 1 USD, like the USD is 1 USD because it's its own thing. And so you have to ask how much is USD worth in USDT, right? And then it might be 0.99, and you ask why, right? So that's the thing. Maybe it's the oracle. So like maybe, and then there could be like a multitude of things that impact that infinitesimal number. But in the end, it's like basically in terms of the backing of that asset, the backing of the USDT. Like he said, like I give you a house and you give me back 1 mStable. 1 mStable is backed by my house. So you have to think of what is USDT backed by. And then you get to like a rabbit hole of asking, okay, the things that it is backed by, is it really worth $1? And so you get to the bottom, like that's the C. That's why you use the bottom line, I'm assuming, for your risk-free reference, USDC, USDT, is because these are the ones that every stable ends up at, kind of. So yeah. I guess I don't even remember what you asked. But
Yeah, do you have to use other stable coins backed by, for example, gold or euros?
Not at this point. To be honest, there is not a lot there's not a lot of liquidity in these stablecoins. If we see in the future that they grow and that there are interesting opportunities, we might. But we probably gonna do other things before.
Good question. Do you think stablecoins are a transition solution? And at some point there will be like native tokens of blockchain that are already stable?
No. I mean, I don't think that they will be stable. I think that stable coins are going to be probably for a very long time. The ones that I do think that might end up being temporary are dollar-backed stablecoins. Potentially, we could have other sorts of stablecoins, like a coin, for example, and other designs that we don't know yet. That could be used and not pegged to dollar and be floating, but they will be less volatile than Ethereum or Bitcoin because they have other use cases. Ethereum is more like oil because you're gonna have to use Ethereum to transactions. So the oil prices are all the time varying because the demand for oil is varying all the time. And it's going to be the same. There will be times in which people will demand more ETH because there will be more financial activity. There will be time in which it will be worth less because there will be less financial activity. And then it's probably never going to be used for payments.
Because, for example, I'm not sure if it is okay, this assumption, but I think I read somewhere that in Polygon, what they are doing is have the native copy and coin matic really low, so the transaction fees are low and everybody can use the blockchain. So somehow they are manipulating the price or having a mechanism to stay low. I'm not sure if this is like a stable coin because probably Matic is in this, but they are already doing something similar.
No, I don't think they're keeping low the price of Matic. What happens is that Polygon network has much higher throughput because it's much more centralized. There's like maybe 100 validators, and all the validators are permissioned, so you cannot open a validator. So then all of the validators have these massive computers that are actually validating the network. So they can handle much more transactions. But in the end, it's a distributed database, but it's not decentralized. So that's one thing. So yeah, the gas prices are down, but not because of are cheaper, not because the price is cheaper. Like when Matic was $2, which was like the highest, was already really cheap. So about the price.
I guess it's cheap because nobody's doing anything. There's the gas and fuel is cheap at the moment because there's nobody doing anything. Like there's no liquidity in the markets. There's the higher the volume, the volume more expensive the transaction option is, since there's nothing going on at the moment because it's just so small and everybody's just generically speaking, everybody's small. Like, yeah, but everybody. There's little, so because of that, it's just so yeah, and then you have all the layer 2 solutions that can solve the problems. There are a few big things like Arbitrum, Optimum, ZK Sync, like talk about ZK Road and stuff. There's a bunch of solutions to all these problems, and that's how you can see how incredibly embryonic this space is. So there's a lot of noise on Twitter, especially because a lot of the crypto community included projects on mStable, traders, the meme, the shit posters, everybody's there. And it gives you a lot of noise. And things like when I 8 into a random meme point, you're going to get like 100x, but it doesn't really work. And then it depends on your investment piece, but I guess it's so but it's completely wrong. But the gas fees are basically there's little to no, sorry, not little, but there's little to on chain. So, if you want to know anything on here, the better options.
2 years ago, I wanted to put in my portfolio some gold, so I was checking traditional finance and all the options to just get some gold. And finally, what I decided is to get this fax gold, which is a cryptocurrency that is pegged to gold. And I just wanted to ask if someone else has done the same, because for me it was like so clear that because it's very expensive to buy gold in the traditional products, ETFs and stuff like this. So I just wanted to know if someone else has done it, so experience. Maybe with another gold peg that I thought that it was the best, which is why I go, but if someone has a better gold peg, I don't know.
There isn't much.
There isn't much.
The issuers are the same ones as BUSD.
Yeah.
Maxers.
I was wondering if there were
Binance as well. Binance USD as well.
Yeah, it's the same.
Yeah. So the USD is issued by Maxers, but it's like sponsored by Binance. Everything has the
but maybe stablecoins are the tool of like $150 billion market cap, or like combined market cap. Like gold would be maybe like 1, 2. It's nothing but that's it. To expose yourself to very risky. It's a slow, very good.
Because at the end, people notice like how strongly packed it is, right? If you get to the bottom, it's stable, or any assets, it's like how, it's like this bit of money, really. It's like how, what are you looking for? Is it like, you're getting gold, like a gold ETF, how strong is it, like that? So, even with the USD, like the reason for a quick look discussion is the lack of faith in the centralized monetary system. So if you ask like, what is the volume that promises like
It's an annual stablecoin.
Sorry?
It's an annual stablecoin.
No.
Dollar, US dollar, yeah, the dollar. Here, it's nothing behind it.
Well, Binance is the biggest army of the world. Ghana, the only some countries.
Yes, there's no, but look, the Japanese currency is also very strong and had no army for very long time. So this argument,
There are different ways to convince others to accept it.
yeah, but in the sense that the real balance is very different. Effectively, it's more or less. There's a belief that comes from more things, but
I want to add to your gold thing. There is on CoinGecko, you can actually go through and it will list you coins by different blockchains or different type of derivative markets. So there is a listing for, I believe, precious metals, oil, and stuff like this on CoinGecko. I don't know about CoinMarketCap. But some of these listings, pricing actually allow you to do quick research on different chains, but also different type of products. I didn't do the Paxos thing. I looked at it 5 years ago because it only gave me paper gold, like paper fiat. So in a sense, if you can't, I know, if you can't go and take your token and claim a physical bar and gold with it, it's not backed up. If you want gold and silver, go buy some gold and silver because whenever that thing will be worth something, it's more than people will have it in their hand. That will be able to trade with other people. I'm not going to say, hey, I've got 1,000 derivative shares of gold or X number of kilograms in this vault in India that gave me like dividends. So be careful with that because much like in the US dollar, if you can't claim it back, you know, it was pegged to gold in 1971. But similar with Tether, I don't trust Tether. I don't think Tether has all those USD asking for an audit. They keep fucking pushing along. They did an internal audit, which is very sketchy. So it's that kind of thing. Don't trust Verify. You can't. If I can't verify that they have those USD, I'm not going to use my crypto or a token that potentially is.
Actually, the funny thing about precious metals is now the derivatives market for that actually controls the traditional prices, which is really weird if you think about it. But it's mainly because it threatens liquidity for the dollar. Similar like JP Morgan stuff that was just sued actually for manipulating the price of precious metals. Or maybe it was Goldman Sachs.
Alright guys, I'm gonna have to interrupt because I'm gonna have to leave soon. Go to the restroom book at 9. So we'll have to leave soon. Thank you everyone for the debate. That was really nice actually. I'm just gonna close with like a few things. So first we're gonna do a raffle. So I just want to give you guys I'm going to do some music to be relaxed. Alright guys, Julian, Future Of So the first one that gets picked, you pick one item from there.
Tina.
The top prize is Ledger Wallet Nanox Plus. So the first people just pick one item from the list, and then as we go, take more items per person. We finish with the Ledger. Final surprise gifts. Rumor. R-U-O-I.
Rudi, it's me.
Rudi. Please take one item with the. Next one, rolling drum. Adrian. Don't fight with Rudi, please. Rolling drums. Alej. Privacy hat at the Jasper. And Igor. What's that? You can text the shade as well at the same time. Okay, we managed to think one person.
Right, yeah. You bring in this up.
Joseph
Take some stickers as well if you want, guys. Okay. Oh, wow. Yeah, there's one hat. Okay, actually, so now whoever you pick will get this hat that we're using. And then for the two, for the wallets.
Sebastián S.
Whoever wasn't picked may win.
Luis Poveda.
And the hat. Cool, thank you guys. So now, Rudi, maybe you say a couple of words.
Yeah, sure.
Do you stand up, maybe?
First, let's give a round of applause for Adrian. I'm Rudi. I'm the founder of Cahoot. So this is the first time we have a Web3 family here. So it's awesome to get to know you, and hope to get to know more of you guys during the night. And hopefully there will be more Web3 family events here in this venue. Just a quick question. Anyone been here before on any DeFi blockchain? Yeah. Cool. Anybody else been here on other events? Yeah. And perhaps somebody have been co-working in the space? Yeah. And guys, so if you're looking for a space to co-work community, then don't miss out on our discount code. Adrian, he will put it in the
group. So it's here, you can take a picture if you want to. And I will put it also.
28% discount on the membership. All right.
All right, thank you guys. This is like the time.